Good day. So today I will be discussing you the strategies and assessment in teaching poetry. Whether you're teaching kindergarteners or an adult enrichment class, a poetry lesson can be engaging for all if you take a few things into consideration first. First, examine your attitudes toward poetry. Before you teach poetry, you must first consider your own thoughts and feelings on the subject. Perhaps you love all things poetry, so you can do nothing but inspire students with your enthusiasm. However, most people have at least a few biases against poetry or preconceived notions about it. You may prefer formal, rhyme poetry and see free verse as so much nonsense. Maybe you love the modern works of living, breathing poets, but you must be forced to read the classics. Being aware of this tendency will keep you from unfairly influencing the opinions of your class and can help you strive for a balance in the poetry you teach. Second, determine your goals. Before planning any lesson, you should determine your goals. This is especially important with poetry because you can take several different approaches to the subject, each requiring different preparation. Enjoyment. You may simply wish for a student to gain an overall appreciation of poetry so you can plan your lesson around enjoying the poetry you read. Have fun with the rhythm of the words, look for intriguing images, and find poems with inspiring message and themes. Literary analysis. In many cases, or classes, poetry is studied with an eye on dissecting its meaning. The emphasis is on identifying literary techniques like simile and metaphor and evaluating their effectiveness. This analytical approach can sometimes hinder students' enjoyment of poetry, but such analysis is also an important skill, so finding a balance is the key. Right? Creative writing. The focus may also be on leading students to create their own poetry. Students experiment with a variety of forms of poetry as a way of expressing themselves. However, this approach usually involves reading a wide range of poetry for inspiration. Number three, learn the terminology. If you're going to be discussing poetry, you need to learn the proper language. You'll need to know the forms of poetry, from haiku to sonnet, and the techniques poets use to build their work. If you don't feel comfortable with poetic devices and forms, look for a literary reference text. Number four, select the poems. Finding the right poem for a lesson is a bit of a treasure hunt. In some situations, you'll be teaching poetry from a required text, so you won't have much say in the poems you use. If you have a choice, start by browsing through a collection of poetry at the library and a bookstore. Think back to poems you studied in school or have read for your own enjoyment and choose a few of your favorites. You should also look for poems illustrating techniques you like to highlight to represent poets of different eras, genders, nationalities, and races. 5. Practice reading. Poetry is meant to be read aloud, so read each poem through several times to get a feel for it and to decide how to read it to the best effect. What words will you emphasize and where will you pause? If you're not comfortable with your poetry performance skills, look for audiophiles or professional readers or even the poets reading their own poems. With these points in mind, you'll be ready to plan a successful poetry lesson. 6. Partners or group. Work together and unfold the unknown or the mystery of the poem. 7. Rewriting. Rewriting what they understand on their own word lines, by line or stanza, and make a conclusion out of it. 8. Learn about the poet. Know the background of the poet because this may help you understand why they write or what emotion do they usually apply on writing a piece of a poem. Know about his life experience, mood, time period, and even the place he lived. Number 9, visualize. Use the words and phrases in the poem to visualize and make meaning of what the poem is saying. Demonstrate this visualization by drawing a picture and underlining words in the poem that help them create the picture. Number 10, read aloud. Reading poetry aloud can deepen your understanding and engagement with the text, help improve your literary and language as well as your speaking and listening skill. Reading aloud can help you appreciation of poetry and improve your speaking voice. Assessment in poetry. So I've listed 10 assessment in poetry. First, poetry portfolios. Second, teacher and peer conferences. 3, journaling. 4, rubrics and assessment lists. 5, formative assessment. 6, questioning, question and answer. 7, projects and assignment. 8, diagnostic assessment. 9 formative assessment, and 10 norm reference assessment. First, poetry portfolios. Portfolios are a good way to assess poetry in the classroom. If the process is as important as the final product, portfolios do take time to compile and complete. So this method is best used when poetry writing spans a grading period, semester, or entire course. Portfolio allow room for creativity, process, and mechanics, while representing the other's full body of work. The evaluator is generally able to see where the student started and the growth the student achieves by the end of the project. Portfolios also typically take into account a student's perception of his work as well as the teacher's evaluation and are quite comprehensive. Number two, teacher and peer conferences. Conferencing is another method used to evaluate student poetry. Whether peer to peer or teacher or to student, conferencing provides a window of insight into the intention of the student poet. Quite often, discussing the student writing with him personally allows him the opportunity to explain creative liberties, variation in convention, and the purpose of the poem. Understanding the student intent and showing interest in his work allows the teacher to assess properly the student's poetry based on his ability and achievement. This technique may be used in conjunction with portfolios or as standalone method. Number three, journaling. Journaling serves several purposes: reflection, critical thinking, and connection. When completed as a reflection of a progress, journaling allows students to review where they started and track their improvements. Journaling also encourages students to think critically about their work. They also provide a space for experimentation with new poetic and writing skills. For the assessor, journals provide invaluable information to depict just how much a student has retained. His motivation for writing intangible, measurable data journals may be used to evaluate oneself or as one element of a larger assessment. Many forms of journal exist: diary style, reflective journals, double entry journals, dialogue journals between teacher and students, and reader response journals. Number four, rubrics and assessment lists. Rubrics, a type of rating scale, are structured approach to assessing student poetry and focus on assessing a predetermined set of criteria. A holistic rubric focuses on the work as a whole, provided a mistake in a part may exist without compromising the overall integrity of the piece. Analytical rubrics are generally more specific and contain several criteria that are being rated simultaneously. Due to their focus and clarity, many teachers find rubrics a helpful and functional assessment tool. Similarly, an assessment list presented as a checklist may include elements that will be assessed or the steps necessary to complete a task. Assessment list may or may not be attached to a numerical score. Both methods benefit teachers and students of poetry as the expectations are clear and the scores are based on the measurable criteria. Number five, formative assessment can be as informal as observing the learner's work or as formal as a written test. Formative assessment is the most powerful type of assessment for improving student understanding and performance. Number six, questioning, question and answer. As mentioned before, and not be confused with the professional discussion assessment method, questioning is pretty much what it says on the tin, asking your candidate question to figure out their understanding of the criteria. Now, this can be oral or written questioning. It can even be in the form of quizzes or exam. It will show you exactly what your candidate does and doesn't know, and therefore is a great way to look at areas for improvement and how to move forward from then on. 7. Projects and assignments. By setting projects and assignments, you can gather a lot of information on your candidate's knowledge in one document. The project assignment assessment method can be put into practice with reports or essay, perhaps even some relevant research for the candidate to cover. Any mistake or parts that aren't quite right from. For example, an essay will highlight gaps in the candidate's knowledge. This will allow you to support them with developing their knowledge further so that all the necessary criteria can be covered at a later date. Number 8, diagnostic assessment. Diagnostic assessment is the most preferred type of assessment of learning. To check a learner's current knowledge base, most of the time it involves a series of questions given in the start of the class or training session to identify a learner's strength and weakness prior to learning. 9. Formative assessment. Unlike diagnostic tests, Formative assessments for learning is administered during a training or learning session to capture a learner's progress in real time. It can take a variety of forms, sometimes even the combination of formal and informal assessment produce procedures like practice quizzes, point exercise, and even short essays. And lastly, norm reference assessment. Norm reference assessment, also called NRT test, is a type of assessment that significantly compares a learner's knowledge and performance to another. The comparison class is called the norming group, which typically consists of a small group of test takers that share specific characteristics. This assessment ranks learners from highest to the lowest to accentuate differences among them and point out who is ahead or behind the norm. Thank you.